see uh, one example. Okay, just before going into JDBC, one simple log example I'll show you. Okay, just quickly just go through it. Log function, log. So SL, I mean the default logging configuration given in Spring Boot. Just you need to add one file. Let me show you that. Yeah. So you can add one simple logback Spring XML file with all the default configurations. Okay, logback is a default enabled in Spring. Okay, so you can add this file. So this file says how to log your messages, the pattern, and all, and what is the maximum size of your file while logging, and what is your file location. Okay, if it is your same machine log file, right, we will configure that particular machine path only. Where do you want to store? Let's say one separate logs folder you want, and there you want to create a log application log file. You can put some file name here and configure this maximum size, what size you want. Okay, and logback file you can find from uh, logback default configurations. No, no, no. Logback default configurations you can find. So follow these docs. Okay, and so default logging configurations we can configure via uh, properties file that we see, that is only for console log. In case if you want to extend more, yeah, here they give. Maybe read through logback. You will get to know what all parameters you need to use. Okay. I don't think this is available by default here. Yeah. So just do these basic configurations. Add this file. That's it. And just through properties, if you want to share the file name, you may put the file name here. Logback file, which file you want to create, or else here you can put file name. I think this is not required. And for log level, right, which levels you want to enable, debug you want to enable, trace, info, you just enable them here. Just a minute. Yeah, more or less that's it. Just simple logback file you need to add, so it will create the logs for you. So whatever logs you do, right, instead of console logs, it will append logs into file as well. Yes, if you are not talking, go on mute. Session is recording, right? Yeah. Huh, nothing. Just log level you need to enable, which log level you want to put. Is it debug or trace, info only? For basic info, you need not to enable anything. Info will be logged by default. Okay, taking a long time. It's okay. Leave it aside. We will add this in our example. Okay. I just want to show you before adding it. Now coming to JDBC. Earlier, when we want to use JDBC for our application, we used to create connections and we used to inject all the required driver name, URL, username, passwords, and we used to create connection pool and then JDBC template, and we started using it, right? For DAO, we can use JDBC template or named parameter JDBC template. And this JDBC template or named parameter JDBC template, they require data source as a input, which is connection pool. We used to create data source using any provider like Apache basic data source, and we injected this data source into JDBC template, and this JDBC template into DAO. And for data source, whatever connection properties required, we have given them as inputs to data source, and we created data source using @bean under the configuration class. Anyway, you can use XML file or you may go through @bean. Their XML file is possible. Here in Spring Boot, we never use any XMLs. You strictly create them under configuration with @bean. Under bean, you can create data source and you can inject your data source into JDBC template and you can inject it if you want to go with the traditional approach. Or else Spring by default will provide you a data source connection pool. Hikari connection pool by default it will use when you add JDBC libraries, right? That default connection pool also will be provided to you. So what we need to configure if we do it through Spring Boot means nothing to do. Just you need to add your data source properties. Spring.datasource.username, datasource.password, spring.datasource. Just you need to add all these data source properties. As soon as you add data source properties, it will understand that you need a connection pool. And if you add JDBC dependencies, it will create by default JDBC template. Okay. So the default data source properties will enable data source for you. And if you want JDBC, just you need to add Spring JDBC dependency. Spring Starter JDBC dependency you need to add. That's it. That will provide JDBC template. I'm not sure because we configure right all the data source URL, username, passwords. Otherwise, how it will get the basic connection properties? Just a minute. Just a minute. Just a minute. You must be configuring your username, password, driver, all this, right? Haven't you? Okay. Yeah. Using data JPA also, right? When you add data JPA, it will create. With data JPA also it will create. Okay. Anyway, you are using data source properties, right? Internally, like how we did, right? In traditional, we used to code everything. We used to create data source. We used to inject into the data source object into Hibernate templates, then Hibernate templates into our classes. Lot of code we used to write there. In JDBC, at least if you see one data source object we used to create, JDBC template we used to create, then we used to inject. And this two itself avoided here. You need not to worry about that. By default, JDBC template will come up with the starter file, data source will come up with the Spring data source. Okay, so let's create a simple example. Let me use uh, create a Spring starter project, Spring JDBC, using Spring Web for controller and MySQL driver to connect with MySQL. If you want to connect with Arkel, you can choose Arkel also. And JDBC, you can search Spring JDBC API, Spring Data JDBC you can add. And I need Oracle driver you can add. Data JPA is for Hibernate, right? This is pure JDBC API. What is your question? We have two approaches, right? No, no, no. First, let us go with the JDBC concept, then JPA concept. Okay. So, yeah, your requirement sometimes may have JDBC, a kind of SQL code you want to write, only JDBC, pure JDBC logics if you want to write. So, for that scenarios, data JPA, doesn't suit to your requirements, right? So you can use simple JDBC. Okay. Or without this data JPA or data JDBC also, you can create your own configurations as you know how to create them. Create a simple data source, create JDBC template and auto wire. In case if you see any trouble with this existing JDBC API, but you can use it. This one also works fine. So just created it. Now let me create end-to-end. It is getting created. Add all the data source properties here first. Spring dot, see what we have. Spring data source, not showing default. Configure data source URL, username, password. So I want to use Arkel. So put Arkel connection configurations JDBC Oracle column, thin, localhost 1521, system, schema. In Oracle, you may call it schema or DB. Yes, I think you asked me this multiple times. Yeah, don't confuse. Oracle will come up with the default schema, whereas in MySQL we create multiple schemas. I think in Oracle also you can do that. I never tried. In MySQL I used to create. Hmm. In Oracle it is user. Correct, correct. So consider that like your database, permanent URL for Oracle XE database. XE is the version which I am using. If you use different version, maybe you will not see XE there. Oracle or something, the version name you might see. Okay, so I have data source configuration. Let's see whether it is creating a data source for you or not. Just I want to see, will it auto wire if I require a data source or not. As I said, it is creating a data source. Let's see, will it auto wire it or not. Data source. I'm just trying to auto wire it. Okay, just connection pool it is creating and injecting or not. I want to verify. Okay, and public void show data source. Just to verify it. Okay, data source. Data source dot get connection. Okay. So let's get this data source and see application context. Get bean. And just call this show data source and see. Run it. Okay, 8080 is used, that is fine. Okay, let's run it again. If you see, one default Hikari data source object is creating with the pool size 1, the default data source. Okay, so this is the default data source that it will create. Even for production we can use it, need not to change it. Okay, same data source we can use. So it is creating data source. So my first doubt is clear. Now as I added Spring JDBC library here, will it create by default JDBC template? So we have Spring JDBC dependency. So will it create JDBC template or named parameter JDBC template, which are two important classes, right? So let's see them just by auto wiring. Auto wired JDBC template. If I am auto wiring means somebody should have created that bean, either you or the framework. Named parameter JDBC template. Let's see JDBC template object. If template object is available, then only it will print. Else it will print a null. If this object is available, then only you will be getting it here. So let me run it again. What happened? Acha. We didn't shut down that. Okay. You see, data source object created, JDBC template is available, named parameter JDBC template available. So by default, it is creating data source for us, and by default, this template is also creating for us. So you need not to worry about creating these beans. Whichever three beans I auto-wired here, I have not created them. By default, Spring Boot created. So you just need to add the dependencies and you can shift gear to code directly just by adding these properties. Your required driver, URL, username, password. That's it. You can implement your application directly. You know right what to do next. You can create DAO, auto vary your template there, and you can implement it. Else let us do one simple use case here. Okay, create a package com.rbu.app.dao student DAO. Usually, right, for the best practice, you may create interfaces. Interface student DAO first. Put all required methods in interface first. Public void create student. Just put signature here. Create required bean. create student, update, delete, whatever methods you want. First create them in interface first, just to achieve inversion of control, right? In solid principles they say create interface and implement your classes. Update, delete, find, find all. That's a basic methods. You know how to implement them still. We'll see. So create interface and implement it. So it will ask you to implement them. So now this is DAO. You know, to create object for your DAO, you need at the rate repository. So it will instantiate your DAO class. And here you auto wire your JDBC template and do all these CRUD operations. JDBC template dot execute, which method it is? Update, right? Update, insert into student values, ID, name, email address. Let's see that. Student get name, student dot get email, and student dot get address. So it will insert in a single line statement. And for update also same thing, whichever fields you want to update. Update student, set name, email, address. Where ID is equal to get ID. Then I do delete student, where ID. And for find JDBC template dot what are that? Find methods, find query methods. Query for object, select the star from student, where ID is equal to get ID. And you create result set to student row mapper. Just create a row mapper object. Create student object here. Set name. Okay, set ID. Result set dot get int of one. Three and four. Name, email, address. So result set to student row mapper also added. So it will bring data into object directly. You may return it directly. Thousands of, yeah, of course. You need row mappers. For each you need to create one row mapper. Yeah, you have to. It's a, see, strictly typed right here in Java. If you miss something, definitely that will not help from Java side. You need to add each and every field into your bean, and you need to put the mapper here. Okay. In JPA, you need not to worry about all this. JPA is beyond all this, right? All the mappings, everything will be taken care by JPA. But it is JDBC. In JDBC, we need to do everything. If it is a traditional JDBC, you don't have this opportunity also. You need to iterate over the results at every time, and you need to close the resources. That manually we should put a lot of effort. Here at least it is doing all that in the background. Okay. Yeah. So use JDBC template dot query for list. So you can pass here, select everything, select star from student. So no where condition now. Just a minute. Query for list, it should return as list of map objects. If it is the case, input arguments. Let me see. If it doesn't work, I'll iterate over the map, but I am considering it will give. It is not returning it. Do I query for list element type? Let's see, real objects. Okay. Let me return it. Yeah. So now let's use this DAO into services. Refresh it. Create a package. Form dot rbo dot add dot service. Same style follow for services as well. Interface segregation, right? So you provide interface first, then implement it. Create a student student service. I stands for interface. Student service. Yeah. Now implement a service class out of it. Student service implements student service. Override all the methods. And here our job is easy. Already DAO is implemented. Just call them. Provide student student to DAO. So you always auto-wire interface rather than implementation. So it will give you flexibility of runtime polymorphism. For service, use at the rate service. Create it. Same signature, right? Pass it. Interface dot update. Interface dot delete. Interface dot find student. Find all students. That's it. Okay. Now implement controller class as well. Add dot web student controller rest controller, and for controller not required any interface implementation. As this is the first class, nobody is going to access it. Create all the methods here, whichever you want. Let's see this first method. I want to call create method. Okay. It's okay. So auto wire service here. Service. Public response entity. So I'm not sending anything, just void. Create student. Request body. I'm expecting a student object. And I want to send it via postman. And here is my URL. Create student. Now as soon as I get it here, I go here and call create method. Just giving that object as an input. Finally, you may return no response. same entity. HTTP status, send whatever you want to send as a response. That's it. Finally, you run and call this create method, give the student bean as an input. Basically, this is bad practice. Okay, we should not use bean. You may use DTOs. This bean is directly connected to your tables, right? Sometimes your table may have large number of parameters that may not required really for your endpoint calls, which means you are indirectly exposing your student object, complete student object which is mapped to your table. For this case, okay, it is JDBC, you can put it, but in JPA you should not do that. Okay, in JDBC, as it is not directly mapping it to table, no mapping done, right? Nothing. I don't know what is the table and what are the columns here. By looking into this bean, nobody can say there you have ID name email address. But in JPA they can tell. If somebody knows that you are using JPA, they know what columns or what properties you are using indirectly in your table also. Okay. So maybe in that case you may introduce one more object here, DTO object, get data from DTO. Okay. Yeah. Now let's test it and see. Nothing changes, but is it a good practice showing the end users what columns you are using or what relationships you are using? Think it in a broad way, you will get it. So I have a table. Let me truncate this table data. Now I don't have any data here. Let me run this application. Getting started, almost full created, and not shut down. Start it again. See, no active profiles. We haven't created any profiles. Just default profile we are using. Okay. I hope it should work. Or let me just shut down and run it in debug mode. Okay. Run it as a debug mode. So the hit will come to controller first. Yeah. Now let's call this create student method. $9090 create student body. Okay. So an object already I have Praveen with ID, name, email, address. Okay. All are matching. Let's is URL correct? Create student. Okay. Trigger it. So you got control here. I got data here. Okay, till here it is looking good. Let me go to implementation. So the call coming to service and finally DAO, and let's finish it. So the DAO operation is executed. Finally, you got response 201 created, and your table must have this data. Okay, so finally the data able to insert. So coming to your question, right? As it is a simple bean, it's okay, you can expose it. But if it is an entity, right, entity we map to table, and we will be having relationships also here, one to one, one to many. So if you try to put that object for end user nothing to do with your entity. Whatever contract you have between your front end and back end, for that contract create a bean here. They never ask you to what is your tables, what is your relationships, give me as it is a object. For them, if you create a object, whatever contract you have between them and you, whatever parameters you need from them, for that particular parameters only create bean and expose it to them. So if you put anything here, this all parameters will be exposed via Swagger documentation, or you need to say yourself these all parameters I have. So that's where I'm saying don't use JPA entities directly here. Use DTOs. Yeah. So other methods you can try. Sorry, DTO, data transfer object. Data which is coming from UI, it will bring it to you. A simple bean, a simple bean itself is a DTO. Okay, which you use for the data exchange, right? Front end to back end to front end. Data transfer object, data transferring from front end to back end to front end. JSON to object, object to JSON. Okay, you can consider it as a DTO. And response entity is the uh, you know uh, class, a wrapper class, you can say. It's a wrapper class. It can carry your response object along with the HTTP status codes. Okay, so rather than sending a simple string message or a simple object, okay, along with that, if you send a proper HTTP codes, right, it is a good practice for the front end team, right? You can share your HTTP codes as well, 200 or 20, 200, 201, 404, or any exceptions. Yeah, yes, something like that. Okay, in simple words, you can send your HTTP status messages, headers only. Yeah, so they will. Sorry, you are not audible. Can you speak little louder? Yeah, yeah, it's better now. Bus, that's it. Yeah, yeah, that's what I checked before application itself, whether it is able to auto-wire them or not. It is doing it. Earlier, if you remember, we used to create them manually. Now it is doing it for us. this JDBC template and data source. As I have configured data source properties, data source it will create. But from where this JDBC template named parameter templates came means from your Spring JDBC dependency. As you added Spring JDBC dependency, right? So these instances were created, the default configurations. So that's the reason all these are available. We configure data source properties here, right? So we indirectly saying I need a connection. And if you see driver class name also not given. Based on the driver which you add in your class path, automatically that driver only it will know. If you add MySQL driver, RKill driver. If anything else, that driver it will know. If you see JDBC, right, basically plain JDBC. Okay. In JDBC we write select queries, right? After select queries, the result is result set. In plain JDBC, after select queries, the result is result set. Do you know that? After select query, the result is result set. Huh. No, no. My question is when you use connection dot create statement using statement dot execute query method when we use, it will give you result set as a response. Plain JDBC will give this way. Statement dot execute query. This is the plain JDBC query. This is how select the star from table we write. Immediately it will give you result set object. Okay. First understand this first statement. Result set. It will get the result set. As soon as you get the result set, we will iterate over the result set in JDBC. Result set dot get next or next as next. Something we call to know whether the results are there in this result set or not. Result set is an array. Okay. In this array, your table data, right? Whatever data you have written, whatever data this query returns, right? From database side, that data it will come into this object. And we need to iterate over this object and we need to, you can play with it. You can get the data here. You'll be getting data here. Your data you'll be getting here. Using result set dot get int, you can get your integer columns data. If your integer column number is 1, same way result set dot get string if your column number is 2. This is how you can get the data. Now what we are doing, we are wrapping up these. Okay, that code is not there here, right? Simply we are using query for object. Then where is that result set? Where is that iteration? How you are getting finally student object? Something happening in the background, right? So to happen it in the background, it needs this result set mapper. It will use your code and whatever query result it will get here from this query, right? Whatever query results it will get here as a result set. You are going over the result set here and putting into your custom object. So this row mapper will help your method in such a way that whatever result set object you will be getting here from this query, that result set object it will give as a input here. Using that input you are iterating and putting into your custom object, and finally you are asking this query for object method use this result set row mapper for your result. It will guide you how to bring my output object finally. No, not required. Okay. Yeah. Result set to bean. In if you imagine JPA, right? If you imagine plain core Java, core JDBC, you need to do all this stuff in a different way. Okay, but if you go to JPA, we are not bothering about all these mappings, because in this bean itself, bean will say which column is mapped to this ID, which column mapped to name, email address. So that's where, that is very advanced. You need not to write all this code. It knows what columns map to what fields, and when you got the select queries, when you fire internally, it will go over all these iterations and it will bring objects directly to you, because it knows the mapping, bean to table mappings in JPA. That is advanced. There you configure these beans, not a plain beans, right? You will be mapping these beans with tables directly. So you need not to introduce this is my table, this is my column like this here, whatever you did here. You are trying to mapping yourself here. You need not to do that, because everything is configured on bean level itself. So bean can able to address which column map to which field. All these mappings internally will be done by your Hibernate engines. Yeah, that's a different story. So this is how simply you can implement your JDBC. Either you go with the JDBC template or named parameter JDBC template. It is easy to configure. Just you can auto wire it here. Both will be available. JDBC template and named parameter JDBC template. And during implementation, follow this pattern. Interface implementations. Nobody will ask you, but if somebody is strictly following, all the solid rules, they definitely ask you follow this interface aggregation rule. Okay, just go with this kind of implementation. Okay, yeah, fine. So we thought to apply log, right? Let me copy that log back file and see. It is login. Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. Correct. Data JPA you should use. Correct. Exactly. Data JPA you have to use. So when you use data JPA, same thing it will perform here. In data JPA, additionally, you will be configuring your additional properties we have, right? If you remember, a dialect parameter, which database you are using. For your dialect, you need to say, and HBM to DDL if you see here, DDL auto config. Do you want to create tables or update tables? You need to configure that as well. Whatever custom inputs that need to be given, that we need to supply. Then it will work. Yeah, login here. So just log back file I'll configure into resources. I don't want to do anything apart from it. So Spring JDBC, just adding log back. No, I did not. You are saying dev tools, right? No, that we are not at there. We are just seeing JDBC only. That is from different ID. I switched to different workspace and there you saw that. We are not using anything. See here, just JDBC URL, username, password. Only three parameters. Okay. Yeah. And let me put simple log. Simple log across the application. SL for JLogger for control. Now use logger dot info logger, right? Many ways actually. Self or J annotation you can use a self or J annotation. Yeah, if you mention it, then this during info, right? Properly, it can say where it is printing, from which class, from which line you are printing this log. Also, it will easily identify. Student something. Let's see how it will work. Okay, shut down existing and restart. Here we have logging, debug, log characteristic, log config, log file name, logging level. So you can have all this here. You can play with them. For now, I'm not doing anything. Just restart it. See, something is changed here. Earlier, do you used to see this color coding? I don't think, right? Now it is changed. And as we mentioned here, it should create some logs folder. There it should create logback file. There your log need to be traced. Complete log need to be put. See, one logs folder created, and there it is created one logback dot log file. Open this log file. See, your application log is recorded here into this file as well. Okay, so now just try to create one more record here. Okay, request is submitted, 201 created. By no, SL4J by default available. You check it. I don't see. I was using SL4J only. Okay. So additional log copied here if you see, which we have configured there, right? Student service method, DO method, controller method, whatever logs we have configured. It is printing that logs. Okay. Yeah. So that's it for today. Tomorrow we'll see data JPA. Okay. You can try calling the other methods. Implement methods here and try it. Hibernate. Need not to use actually. If you want to use, if you want to write code, you can code it. Otherwise, Spring Data JPA providing uh, no code technique, because by default they are providing implementation for your DAOs. This complete layer you can skip, complete DAO layer. You need not to provide, here you see the implementation, right? Lot of implementation. This implementation will become zero. If you go with the Hibernate template, you need to implement it. That's your risk. Without the Hibernate template also you can implement it. We will see all the styles, okay? From the basic styles to how advanced they provided implementation. And yeah, let's complete with tomorrow's session, then you will get the conclusion. Okay. Actually, data JPA is sufficient. We can do all. In current application, I am doing PLSQL migration. It's a huge migration. Using data JPA, I can able to almost handle everything. I can able to call join queries. I can able to create custom JPQL methods, at the rate queries. I mean, there are all solutions available in the data JPA itself. If you go Hibernate template, that is something one step down to the data JPA. You need to write lot of custom queries. Even for simple save or update, you need to write a line, single line at least. In data JPA, you need not to write code. For basic CRUD operation applications, zero code, no code required. That all not required here. Just your entity is required. Just bean is required. The bean to table mapping is required. Up to that you need to do. Apart from that, you need not to do anything. Just a interface you need to create. That's it. Okay. After example, you can explore it. Okay. Now it's okay. Go with JDBC and try the remaining methods yourself. Okay. Yeah. So that's it for today. Tomorrow we'll see the data JPA. Okay. And I'll try to show you NoSQL also there with SQL and with NoSQL DB also. Yeah. We'll see both SQL and NoSQL examples. Any questions for Spring Boot tomorrow? We cover again AOP we learned, right? Same AOP you can apply. Uh, Nothing to do with your configurations. Same aspect, same configurations you can use. And once after data JPA, I want to show you one web application and one REST-based application, both same like what we did today with the Mongo and this. Hereafter I want to start uh, microservices. There I want to discuss config servers for the cloud configurations and gateway and circuit breaker principles, all the microservices design patterns. Okay, we will go in a order. Okay. No, deploying in cloud. I am unable to do that actually. Uh, since AWS console changed, even I am unable to, you know, do that stuff. Earlier it was easy. I'll check the documentations. I should have all documentations. If you know how to use Elastic and RDS, um, it's a, you know, a our task. You can create them and integrate it. But yeah, the Kafka we will see it in local. Okay. I'll try to create in-memory Kafka at least. If Kafka installation doesn't work, we will see in-memory example. Just one message pushing and listening. Okay. You are not audible. Apart from the notes which I given, refer Spring IO, refer Spring IO. Okay, that's the best documentation. I said right. I shared that link as well. Yeah, those are Spring Cloud concepts only. Cloud config, Eureka, load balancer, Jipkin. Those all are cloud configurations only. I mean, cloud related topics only. We will see the gateway also. The gateway is important in Spring entire microservices architecture. That is like a heart. Yeah, we will discuss. Correct. Same like our local gateway, how it works. That one also will work in the same way. If you, I don't know, you are using App G. What is that? Apache. Acha, acha, Google one. I used a similar like APIM from this Microsoft gateway. Yeah, yeah, we will implement our own gateway. Here we will implement our own gateway. So, though you are using the external gateways also, we can integrate again with our own gateway. That gateway will help you from many points. Like all the configurations, all the calls will be centralized. It's okay. Once we discuss with microservice architecture, we will jump in there. But all the concepts we are discussing, all the concepts in the sense, the load balancing concept, the gateway concept, and this HTOS, the circuit breaker concepts, and we'll be showing you caching concept. Okay, basic security concepts, all will be covered there. Beyond that, if you see anything required, we will see. Plain, yeah, that way also you can implement. No, I can't help you for that because I don't know how to get that gateways. I used to have access to Azure, so I don't know how to procure them. But that's not a difficult thing. That's not a difficult thing. Let me show you. Particularly, you are asking gateway, right? APIM gateway. Okay, correct, correct. It is going to somewhere. Azure APIM gateway. Again, it is going to happen. Okay, I'll see the console. If possible, I'll show you that. Just they will give you console. There you need to add your URL. That's it. It will expose. It will create one more URL for you. The gateway URL. That gateway URL you can exchange. Yeah, that all we will see, Prakash. We are somehow deviating it. Yeah, we will see that. So once discussing with the local gateways, you will get the complete idea why gateway is for. So you can play thereafter. Okay, uh, with the external gateways or local gateways. Okay. Yeah. Something Velu asked, I missed. Cloud concepts, right? Yeah. Go here into the features. Okay. Follow Spring IO documentation. Apart from the discussions that we are doing, if you want to know more about the Spring Boot or microservices, lot of examples, documentation they give. Okay, so this really helps you to go through it, and you can refer. I'll personally suggest you one blog also. One of my friend, Java. Go through his blog. Okay, he's writing nice documentation how to do in Java. Really nice person. If you want to talk to him, you can talk if he's available. How to do in Java. He given lot of did lot of research and added many examples. You may go through it as well. End to end examples he given. Okay. Or even cloud also he given. You can go through cloud also. Okay. Cloud, Spring Boot, microservices.